In order to fake the pregnancy, I had to gain weight. So I started eating tons of food. I would have pizza every other day, I ate 2 pints of ice cream a day, and every time I passed by a fast food place, I would pick up something to eat. I was gaining a little bit of weight, so people believed me when I said I was pregnant. Finally, the wedding came around. I was so relieved once we were married because I knew I had to eventually go to the doctor. And I had decided that once the doctor said that I wasn't pregnant, I would put on a show and pretend that I just lost the baby. Well, when it finally happened, my husband straight up asked me if I made it all up. And I told him yes. It literally took him 1 hour to move out of the apartment. He went straight to get a restraining order, and my parents sent me to a psychiatrist. But you see, we're still married. He hasn't filed for divorce, so I think I should reach out to him. I know he and I will end up together. What do you guys think?
My nail horror story, and oh my goodness, it hurt. It was a late January night, and I was frantically typing on my computer when I hear a bang. I quickly run down to my dark and quiet basement to check the dryer. I swiped the door. Bang! Hit the handle and missed. Ouch! An excruciating pain followed. I looked at my hands in absolute horror to see 2 nails missing. Later, I found them on the floor. 4 months to grow them back. Beware of dryers.
Part 2. So on our way back from doing our thing, we had saw a group of kids that were behind this bush and they were chiefing. And we didn't think that they saw us because we were like, oh, they're just smoking, like whatever. So I go back to the meet, everything is good until the end of the meet. One of my best friends sends me this picture that I guess somebody posted on their story. And it was a picture of me and the kid hooking up. And next thing I know, my sister is blowing up my phone. And like I said, my sister and I didn't have a good bond, so I didn't give a shit what she had to say because I didn't know. So then I got home. And as soon as I walked into my room, my sister was literally waiting there for me. And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, him and I are in a relationship. And I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? And she was like, well, it's on the down low, but we're in a relationship. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're a whore. So then she decides to drive both of us over to his house. So we all decided to just stay away from each other. But then they got back together. So I just figured that wasn't fair, and I'm still hooking up with him.
Part 2 about how this guy used me to get with my best friend. Like I said, they started dating. The boy that I was talking to at the pool, we're gonna call him Luke. Well, Luke's best friend was dating my best friend. Fast forward 2 months, Luke's saying how he wants to date me and stuff like that, but it's not the right time. And every time that I would ask Luke to hang out, he would only hang out if my best friend was there. Red motherfucking flag alert, bitch. Anyways, I didn't see that red flag. So Luke and his best friend go to this party. And apparently I was told that there was this girl there that was really hot. And Luke was saying to his best friend, oh, you should hook up with her. She's totally into you. Your girlfriend won't find out because she doesn't even know any of the people at this party. So he hooks up with the girl there. Then Luke calls me and says, OMG, like he cheated on your best friend. So I immediately call my best friend to tell her. And because she likes to talk to Luke about all her problems, she calls him. So he goes over there to comfort her. I didn't hear anything from them till a week after. My best friend posted him on her story and goes, my new boo.
This is why it's better to have one friend that you hang out with regularly instead of having a big group of friends. And trust me, you're going to want to listen to this story time. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I was kind of going through an identity crisis, and low-key still am. I went to a predominantly white school for the majority of my life. So let's just say I was extremely whitewashed. It was one of those times in my life where if a white person said the N-word around me, I would just laugh. Not because I didn't know it was wrong, but because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be like everybody else, and I seeked validation. Sophomore year was really when I started to become who I am today. I wanted to learn way more about my culture and my background. So I started becoming friends with people from other schools that are more diverse. Eventually, I met this group of girls. And I thought these girls were going to be the sweetest girls I would ever meet. Now, this friend group was serving flavor. I'm talking diverse to the T. One night, we decided that we were going to spend the night at one of the girls' houses. Let's call this girl Sally. I kept getting lost on the way to Sally's house, and I thought it was because I didn't know the area that well. Keep in mind, that's what I thought was the reason. I get there and we watch like 4 or 5 movies before I end up falling asleep. And when I wake up, I was in a room full of grown-ass men staring at me. Part 3 of why you should have one loyal friend instead of hanging out with a big group of friends. So I go into the bathroom and there's a window. I'm thinking to myself, I would be so dumb. I would be so extremely, incredibly stupid to go back into that room full of grown-ass men that I've never met before, instead of making my escape through that window right here, right now. So I trusted my gut and I got the fuck out of there. Mind you, I'm in my PJs right now. No shoes, no socks. I'm making my great escape. Call me Pablo Escobar. While I was doing all of it, I was in disbelief. Like, I cannot believe that I'm escaping, like, right now. Like, this is actually insane. Like, I did what I believed was right at the moment. And honestly, that decision might be the reason why I'm alive right now. So I make a run for it. I immediately run to the front of the neighborhood. I hide behind some trees and then I call my sister. I call my sister instead of my parents because my mom was the one who drove me there. And if she knew that something bad happened, she wouldn't have let me go out again. I'm frantically explaining everything on the phone to my sister. She literally speeds to come get me. When she gets there, I immediately hop in her car and we get the fuck out of there. On our way home, I get a text from Sally. Last part is part 4. I'm making that right now.
Story time about the Miami vacation from hell, the depths of hell. My best friend and I wanted to plan a trip to Miami to celebrate our college graduation. Initially, I thought it was just going to be the 2 of us, but she ended up bringing 3 of her sisters from her sorority. Mistake number 1 was not checking in with these people and kind of figuring out their vibe and what they like to do. Because if I would have known prior to going, I wouldn't have even gone. So we land and we go to the hotel, and by this point it's around 3 p.m. We talked about what we wanted to do when we got there, and we decided we were going to take a little nap for about 3 or 4 hours, and then we would get up around 8, get ready, and then go out and have some fun. Well, 8 o'clock rolls around and everybody's still asleep. I try to wake everybody up. Nobody got up. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to just go get ready myself. And then I'll come back and wake them up once I'm ready. 9 o'clock rolls around. Nobody's getting ready. Nobody's getting up. So this is strike number 1 because we got 3 days in Miami and y'all are spending the first night asleep. But you know what? I made the best of it. So I went downstairs and I went to the bar. I had a few drinks with some nice people. And when I came back upstairs, they were pissed off at me. Come back for part 2. Miami vacation from hell part 2. Like I said in part 1, I came back from the bar after they had all slept and refused to get up, and they were pissed that I left them. By this point, it's around 1 o'clock in the morning. They basically sat in the room and created their own narrative that I left them because I didn't want to be around them, when in reality, they just wouldn't wake up. So whatever. The next day, I decided we're going to start fresh and have fun. After sleeping all day, these girls wake up mad late. I'm talking like noon. Mind you, we have 3 days. We now have 2 days. Get ready, we go to a little selfie museum. And one of them goes, what time we going back to the hotel? I'm sitting here looking like, you ready to go back to the hotel already? We've been gone for 3 or 4 hours, babe. The other 2 were like, yeah, I'm ready to go back too. So now it's just me and my best friend. I'm just looking at her like, these are the type of girls you hang out with? These are your friends? Majority rules. So we go back to the hotel. By this point, I decided I would just have a vacation on my own. I only had like a day and a half left. So I decided after that I was going to leave the hotel, and I went and I had fun. I went shopping. I went to dinner by myself and everything. Make sure the people you go on vacation with share your interests.
This story time is why I stopped being friends with a girl because her dad was a pervert. And we're calling her Kim. So me and Kim became friends at school. Over time, we realized we lived close together. So she started coming over to my house and I started going over to hers. She had 5 brothers and she was the only girl. Whenever I'd come over to her house, I'd say hello to everyone, but her dad was always excited to see me. He'd immediately run and give me a hug. Over the past couple months, he'd give me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. He said that I was his new little girl. I felt uncomfortable with it, but I went and told my friend Kim, and she said, he's just glad you're here, and you're like family now. I was like, okay, I guess, and I would just ignore it. Thanksgiving come up, and I went over to her house for a plate. Her dad opened up the door and gave me a hug and a kiss as usual. I walked in the house, and he said, you need to eat to keep that booty plump. I laughed in nervousness, and he slapped and squeezed my butt. There's more that happened after this. Let me know if you guys want a part 2.
Have any of you guys ever had this experience where when you first start working as a job in your teens and your early 20s, the people that have been there for a long time be like dry hating? You're just like, I'm very much here for the summer to stack up my coins so I can go back to campus. And they're just like, I've been here for 30 years and I hate it here. But that don't mean you gotta take it out on me. When I was in high school, I worked in the catering industry, and there was these 2 older women. They were like in their 40s, and they would always pick on me. They might have been in their 50s. I don't really know. But when I first started working there, we had all went on lunch together because we had just served like 400 people. And this is like my second shift, mind you, and we have different stuff every single time we have parties. So I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what would taste good. So I kind of got like a little bit of a bunch of stuff versus like getting a whole plate of pasta because I didn't know what I liked. Mind you, I worked with my best friend, but I was so new, she didn't even know this was my best friend at the time. This bitch goes, are you going to eat all that? Come back for part 2.
My mom spanked my bully. Story time. When I was in 3rd grade, I used to hate going to the bus stop because there was a boy there who would bully me. And it got so bad that some days I would go home crying. I felt like I couldn't do anything because he was much older than I was. So of course I told my mom, and she called the school and they did nothing about it. So then my mom somehow found out who his parents were and she went to go talk to them. And all they said about it was, boys will be boys, there's really nothing we can do about it. And then that's when my mom was like, if y'all don't handle it, I will. So the next morning she told me to go to the bus stop and if my bully bothered me to come back home and tell her. So I went to the bus stop and of course, he bothered me. So I went back home, told my mom, and she immediately grabbed her belt and dragged me back to the bus stop. She walked up to that boy and was like, "Are you bothering my son?" And the boy was like, "Yes, I am. What are you gonna do about it, Grandma?" My mom grabbed that boy by his shirt, turned him around, and started spanking him with her belt. And it was so loud. Literally got his cheeks clapped.
Storytime PT1. I had been knowing this girl since middle school. She sent me $40 deposit for her and her friend. She told me she was gonna bring her own rhinestones, so for me to give her a discount. I didn't think nothing of it, so I agreed. They came in the next day, and she asked for extra stones, but the small beads that go around the stone. I started putting them on each nail around each stone. She then starts being picky, telling me to move them after they had dried in place. I was being nice and following what she wanted. I ended up taking 3 hours on her nails. When it came down to paying her, total was $65 without the $20 deposit. It was $45. She told me she only had $40 cash and that she was going to send the rest when
Story time about why I beat up my best friend. So a little background information. Her and I had been best friends since we were in 7th grade. Her family was rich, mine was poor, and at first she was a really good friend. She was always there for me whenever I needed her, until our freshman year of high school, which is when her and I started hanging out with boys. Now, my mom was kind of strict. She wouldn't really let me hang out with boys, but her mom was more lenient about her hanging out with boys. Every weekend she would throw a party at her house, and she would throw them in her attic because 1, it was huge, and 2, her parents didn't give a fuck what she did up there. Anyways, she would always offer to do my hair and makeup before the party started, which always made me really excited because I never really put any work into my physical appearance. Well, little did I know, the only reason why she would offer to do my hair and makeup at these parties was so that way she could make me look like shit in front of all the boys. So after that, I taught myself how to do my own makeup and do my own hair, like for part 2.
Storytime PT2. She told me she'll pay the rest when she got home because her boyfriend was asleep and he was gonna send the through cash app. They went to the gas station to take a restroom break. I told them to make sure they had cash for the ND set, and she was saying they weren't giving back cash at the gas station. So I told them if they could go to the bank, and they started to get mad. They ended up going, but they said their card wasn't working. I don't understand why the other girl didn't have cash if the first one had paid cash. I ended up rescheduling the girl for a Sunday, and they agreed.
Story time about how I crashed my dad's really expensive car. So a little background information. My mom had just got remarried to my stepdad 3 years ago, and he was this rich asshole who owned a bunch of food trucks and thought he was the shit. Well, at the time I also had a boyfriend, and we had only been dating for like a month and a half. But my boyfriend would always beg me to let him drive my stepdad's car, and I always said no because that was like his child. Like, he had children. He could care less about them. His car was more important. Anyway, so the one weekend my parents are out of town, and one of my friends was throwing a graduation party. So that whole day my boyfriend was trying to talk me into taking the car, and I already knew where my stepdad hid the keys. So I just decided I wouldn't drink that night and I would just take the car. He kept asking me if he could drive, but clearly I said no.
Hope you guys liked this video and found it helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It does help support us, and let's know what videos you guys want to see.